Ladies and gentlemen, we're a few minutes behind. The next event is a lecture within the Thomas H. Scholl lecture series by visiting entrepreneurs. Notice, this is not an entrepreneurship lecture. This is a lecture by visiting entrepreneurs. And it's entitled Building Companies from Scratch. There are many paths to success, but there is a super highway to failure. It gives me distinct pleasure to introduce my great friend, colleague, member of the Board of Trustees of Stevens Institute of Technology, chairman of the Research, Entrepreneurship, and Technology Transfer Committee of the Board of Trustees, a donor to Stevens Institute of Technology, and a phenomenally successful entrepreneur, Mr. Tom Scholl. I promised him this morning that my introduction would be very brief, and it will be very brief. But let me just say, I have met a lot of very successful entrepreneurs throughout my career. I do not know of an entrepreneur with this breadth of experience. I was talking to Tom this morning, and he reminded me that he has been involved with 45 startup companies in a variety of capacities. Of course, he has founded many. He has run many, he has invested in many, and he has been a member of the board of directors of many companies. This man has looked at starting companies from all possible angles, and therefore he will have a lot to share with us. Tom is a terrific friend for myself. Tom and I have known each other for a long time now. I wanted to use this opportunity to thank him for being here, for being such a wonderful friend of the institution, for having generously contributed to establishing this lecture series. And unfortunately, I have another meeting at 11 o'clock at the other end of the campus, so I will not be able to stay here until the end of his speech, and therefore I'm going to do something in the beginning that I had originally planned to do at the end. The only perk that I get in this university is that I get to wear this presidential pin that nobody can get anywhere. You can't buy it on eBay or Amazon. You can't go to a store. This is a very specially designed pin. I won't go into the details, but let me just say that it's designed in London, manufactured in Hong Kong, and there's a precious stone on this. Don't take me too seriously. You're giving me this real serious look. The precious stone comes from South Africa. So if I put this pen on you, will you wear it from time to time?
Absolutely.
This is my appreciation for the phenomenal job he's doing for us.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to leave you with Tom Scholl, the entrepreneur.
So I was going to say, in the entrepreneur business, as they say in baseball, you're either humble or about to be humbled. And I want to give you an introduction as viewed by my son, my youngest son, Tommy, regarding what he has to say about me. I received this from my son as a birthday card recently. He said, I am making progress in my evolution, but I'm not yet erectus. Now, I know the students here have heard about this high ranking that Stevens has with regard to return on investment in your own education. That is, how much you pay to come here and take courses and learn versus when you get out, what kind of job you get. It's a great signpost to the university that it's achieved this ranking. But, there's another reason to get a technical degree. And, many people don't know that, did you know all engineers go to heaven? And, but some people don't realize why that's the case. It turns out that many years ago, there was a very competent engineer who had a minor sin in his life and he went to hell. So he got to hell, he didn't like it. It was too hot. People were sweating. People were complaining. So he looked at the situation and he wrote a project plan. He put together a budget. He went around collecting some parts in hell, and he built an air conditioner. And actually, it wasn't just an air conditioner, it was a complete air conditioning system. Before long, people started enjoying hell. So God came down and said, "Devil, what's going on? Why are people so cool and comfortable in hell? It's not supposed to be like this." And the devil said, "Well, you sent us an engineer, finally, and he solved our global warming problem." And God said, "This cannot be. There must be some mistake. I want you to send the engineer back to heaven immediately, or I'm going to sue." And the devil said, "You can't sue. You don't have any lawyers." Now, ever since that time, when engineers get their degree, did you hear that? You got to get your degree. You can go to heaven. Because God decided it's just too dangerous to send engineers to hell. So, as Nariman said, the title of my talk is "There are Many Paths to Success and There's a Superhighway to Failure." I want to just explain a little bit what I mean by that. I've heard a lot of entrepreneur pitches, and they always are prescriptive. You know, it makes it sound like a formula. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to do these 3 things. Everything's going to be great. But yeah, every entrepreneur describes it in a different way. So what I've seen in my life is that there are many ways to start a company. There are many paths to success, not just one. It has a lot to do with who you are, what you know, what you've learned, and what your values are. And you know, what that means is you'll be glad to know that since there's not just one way, you don't have to drop out of college after 2 years to be successful, believe it or not. When you read the newspaper, for some companies you would think that's the case. But there are a lot of ways to fail. And on the other hand, they go into certain categories, and that's why I call it the superhighway to failure. But you know, when you look at this superhighway, it's like around here. It turns out, even though it's a superhighway, that doesn't mean it's fast. It can be slow, congested, and agonizing. So, you know, what you want to do is avoid the superhighway to failure. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I'm going to define some terms. What do we mean by success? Success is not just starting a company. I've talked to lots of people. They say, you know, I asked them what they've done. They said, well, I started 6 companies. That's not success. That's not what I'm talking about. Success means, in my definition, that you started a company and you are liquid, or you have the ability to get liquid. And that you made money for your shareholders. And since you're a shareholder, that means you made money for yourself. That's success. What's failure? Failure is very easy. You're out of business. You don't exist. That's failure. Now, what a lot of entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, forget is there's success, there's failure, and then there's something else called sideways. Sideways is a company that doesn't scale, doesn't grow, makes only enough money to survive, it's got a limited market, it's difficult to exit, nobody wants to buy it. You've all heard of, you know, these various styles of companies, the mom and pop company, the lifestyle company, the Walking Dead company. These are all sideways companies. Now, there's not necessarily anything wrong with a sideways company if you exist, but you need to remember that when you start a company, this is one of the options that is out there, and that this could happen to you if you haven't thought about it in advance. What do I mean by starting from scratch? A lot of people have said, you know, I don't recommend starting from scratch. This is why. Starting from scratch means you've got no money, you got no people, you got no market, you got no product or service, you got no customers, you got no world corporate headquarters, hopefully you got no debt. All you got are two things: ideas and passion for those ideas. Now, unfortunately, if you don't have ideas and you don't have any passion for those ideas, then you really do have nothing, and that means, you know, go find another job. Don't start a company. So when I talk about starting from scratch, I mean you have nothing. I'm in a lot of meetings, including meetings here at Stevens, where somebody comes and says, oh, I can't do X, Y, Z because I got no budget. It's like, to me, that is, so what? That's normal. You got no money? That's normal. What are you going to do about it? That's the key question. Now, when I started my first company, Telegy Networks, I was very fortunate to talk to an investment banker, and he said, you know what, Tom, do you know what it means to be a CEO? I said, well, I don't know. I'm a first-time CEO. He said, basically, you need to start from the lower left-hand corner and go to the upper right-hand corner. That's it. I'm an engineer. I get it. That sounds good. Now, what's on the x-axis? What's on the y-axis? The x-axis is time. The y-axis, you know, before the internet explosion where the y-axis became eyeballs, in many cases, normally the y-axis was things like revenue, number of customers, profitability, things like that. But you know, really these days what I'm here to tell you is the y-axis needs to be the figure of merit or the metric that's important for your company. And that might be different things. For my very first company, revenue, profitability were important because we wanted to build a sustainable company. But it turns out in the early days, the most important thing for us was the number of design wins, because we had a design win business. So if we got lots of design wins, we would later make a lot of money. So we focused in on design wins. Now, if you are really a stud entrepreneur, I can give you a more difficult problem in terms of going just from the left to the upper right, and that is, for the first 5-10 years of your business, never go down. Give it a try. It's pretty tough. Okay, if you start a company, you can fail for lots of reasons. You can fail because of bad luck. That's a bummer, but you can't do much about bad luck most of the time. I can tell you if you're a first-time CEO, and even if you're not, you're going to make a lot of bad mistakes. But what I want to tell you today is, please don't fail because you made outrageous, over-the-top, stupid mistakes. And what do I mean by a stupid mistake? A stupid mistake is a mistake that you could have avoided if you had done some homework. So when I started my first company, I said to my wife, Susan, you know, I may go out of business, but it's not going to be because of stupid mistakes. And you know why? Because we can't afford it. That's why. And my wife said, yeah. Of course, I shouldn't have said that because she reminded me every time I did make a mistake, you know, is this a stupid mistake you were talking about? Fortunately, it worked out. Okay, now to just summarize where I want to go at this point, I want to pick 5 themes. There's a lot more than 5 that are important, but these are 5 important ones that have to do with company success: people, market opportunity, business model, financing strategy, company culture. And my claim is making the right decision in all these areas doesn't guarantee you success, but is necessary for success. But if you make a stupid mistake in any of these areas, there's a high probability that you will fail. Okay, let's take people. you got screwed. What do I mean by that? Well, you didn't do your homework with the partner that you picked to go into business with. Let's look at the ramifications of that, because not unexpectedly, bad people end up being a cause of lots of stupid mistakes. And it's always painful to see it when it happens. I forgot to mention that these stupid mistakes I'm going to go through in these 5 areas, I have personally experienced with companies that I've been involved with. So these are not made up things. These are, unfortunately, real things. So you were looking around for a partner or a co-founder, and you said, what do you care about? What's important to you? And they said, well, we don't care about money. I'm going to work really hard. You can count on me. I'm going to work night and day. And by the way, I've built a sales team. Sales team, piece of cake. No problem. Sales team, you want to go to $150 million. I know how to do that. Guess what? They lied. They didn't tell you the truth. So you're going to go back to your wife and say, well, my company's out of business because my partner lied to me? So you need to do some checking. Now, unfortunately, in one case that comes to my mind, it got worse. It wasn't just that the partner was not a good partner, but the partner decided on their own to go start another company without telling the founding CEO, and then started developing some IP and some products, and turned around and sued the original company for IP infringement. And that lawsuit ended up costing the original company $1.5 million. Now here's the bad news. Do you realize how difficult it is to raise any money if you have to tell your potential investors, oh yeah, I got this lawsuit going on? And nobody wants to hear, why do you have the lawsuit going on? All they need to hear is you got a lawsuit. They don't want to spend any money on lawsuits. They want to spend money on product development. So, it is a really, really tough situation to be in where your partner has sued you and basically is trying to develop a competing company, and you aren't even, out of the gate yet. So one tip I have in this regard is when you evaluate people, whether it's employees, partners, whatever it is, I use three categories. Each category has 2 parts. The first part is look at how smart and how competent they are as people, just raw smartness, competence. Second thing, look at the relevant experience and domain knowledge. If you're hiring somebody in sales, make sure that they have some accomplishments in sales. And finally, what are their values and what makes you think you can trust them? So actually go through an evaluation. When I started my first company, I actually took everybody I knew that I was thinking of working with, and I put these 3 categories down. It was amazing. I could fill in the first 2 with top numbers. The last one, values and trust. Could I really trust this person when the going got rough? That was the one that was tough to fill in. Okay, market opportunity. Let's talk about that. I talked about doing homework. Well, in this case, you didn't vet your product idea with potential customers first. And this is another piece of advice I have for budding entrepreneurs. You don't even have to have a product done. You can go talk to customers as if you have it done and see what they think about it. The other thing I've seen many times is, well, we're starting this company and we're going to do X, Y, Z, and why are you going to do that? Well, there's this competitor. They're doing that. They've raised money. They must know what they're doing. And so we need to do the same thing. That's not vetting the market opportunity. In fact, what really throws people off base is they found investors who believed what was said about the company, and they believed the story so much that those investors put $38 million into the company. So it must be a real company. The market must exist. They raised $38 million. Guess what? That doesn't mean there's a market. You might think it means that that's a market. It doesn't mean that. So after 4 years of hard work, one day your board gets together and says, you know, I'm not sure if we have a market opportunity. We don't seem to be selling products. Something's wrong. I think we better hire an industry consultant to come in and look at this and tell us if we got a market. The industry consultant goes out, comes back, says, yeah, you got a market. That competitor you were worried about, they're doing $9 million a year, along with your $2.5 million in revenue per year. The two of you own the market. That's it, $38 million, $11.5 million market. That's not a market opportunity. You don't want to go there. Okay, business model. A lot of people don't know what a business model is. A lot of people call it different things. Business model is your money machine. That's what I like to call it, the money machine. How do you really get money into this thing? It's the juggernaut of your business. You know, it's the force that drives the business forward. Well, guess what? You can start your company without validating your business model. And what I've seen so many times, which is sad, is people who have been told or who have decided to scale up their business, i.e. spend money, but they have not yet validated their business model. So what happens? You get to this point and you find out that customer acquisition costs, as an example, how much does it cost to get a customer to come to you and buy something? Your marketing expenses, how much does it cost to help customers find out about the company and your product? And your capital investments required for expansion, as an example, are growing at a faster rate every month than your revenues. It's a horrible place to be in once you arrive at that place. It's terrible. Because basically it says, you know, some huge change has to happen, or what you're going to do is you're going to lose money on every single sale that you make. Now, I had a good friend, he summed up the business model issue in one sentence, which I really love. I think if you guys are ever in a board, you can sound like a genius if you say, you know what, even a monkey can run a company that doesn't make money. And it's true. Okay, financing strategy. You know, first of all, what I'd like to tell you is raising money is a skill set. I don't know, maybe it's intuitive to some people. For me, it wasn't intuitive at all. I had a lot to learn. I made a lot of mistakes. But there is a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it when it comes to raising money. My advice to young companies is what you want to do is match your financing plan to the rest of your business strategy. That sounds like a pretty kindergarten type thing to say. Unfortunately, almost nobody ever does it. I'm always amazed. It's like, what do you want to accomplish? How much money does it take? How much total money? Now figure out a plan to go get that money. If you can't, that doesn't mean that you'll get it, but at least think about your financing strategy first. You know, everybody knows, I hope, the best kind of money. The best kind of money is customer money. Customers who want to pay you for your product or service because they love it. That is the best kind of money. But too often, people think if they were able to raise debt or equity type of money, that that must be, if I raised the money, then that's my strategy. I raised the money. Now, let me give you an example. There's the famous Uncle Joe, who's a really smart dentist that's very excited about your company. And he's got a lot of wealthy friends that he's told about your company that's in an exciting new technology area. And Uncle Joe says, you know what, Bill, I'll give you, with my buddies, $500,000 for 40% of your company today. I'm your uncle. You can trust me. Well, that's fascinating. Gee, my Uncle Joe believes in me so much, he went out and got his wealthy friends, now they're going to give me $500,000. And it sounds like a validating point, right? But it's not. It's not really a validating point, particularly if you didn't do your own financial strategy. Why do I say that? Because Uncle Joe comes back in 18 months when you're out of money. He says, Bill, where are we? And you've now discovered that your business plan requires you to raise only $10 million more. And Uncle Joe says, well, gee, I'm retiring, and my friends are retiring, and I got to have that money back. That's when you know you're in trouble. And what's the result of that trouble? It is what we used to call, in the VC world, a cap table with hair on it. And it basically means the capital structure of your company is so messy and so convoluted. It's the kind of thing where the founders aren't going to make any more money, and the people who have invested have been wiped out, and they're gone from the company. So it's not a good state to be in. Okay, company culture is the last one. I was just at an entrepreneur speech last week at another university, and the entrepreneur said, company culture, I don't believe in it. Well, I'm one of the people that strongly believes in it. I know my friend Dave Hirschberg strongly believes in it. It's a really important thing, but for people who don't really understand what I'm talking about, what is company culture and how important it is, go see the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. That's company culture. It's amazing. On the one hand, it's amazing that the gentleman was able to get up in the morning every day, but on the other hand, it's not a place I would have wanted to work. But what is company culture? Well, okay, let's take the company of no accountability, which I have seen many, many times. And it's, how do you get into this boat that's headed off to no accountability? And I'll give you a simple statement. It's CEOs who, I call it the Pinocchio principle. They are so interested in being a real boy that they believe they are a real boy, and they're not a real boy. And what I mean by that is, actually, I've talked to people who are starting companies, and they say, man, I had a great week this week. I talked to 6 customers. I talked to NEC, and I talked to Cisco, and I talked to Hewlett-Packard, and everybody's excited about the company. Well, guess what? A customer is somebody that pays you money for a product or a service. And you say, well, how much money did you make? I mean, it's amazing. You got an order, you got revenue, you got paid. Is that what you mean by customer? No, we had a good meeting. Well, those aren't customers. Those are just visits you made to people. Doesn't mean anything. But good people don't see that unless they hold themselves accountable. And when you hold yourself accountable, that means you do things like financial statements. You look at them and you study them and you say, only on the basis of this can I determine how good I am. Unfortunately, these same people who started out saying that they had lots of customers who weren't customers, they're the same people that go around talking about, after they have a few customers, that they're a profitable company. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are going to join a company that say, I say, why are you going to join? Well, it's a profitable company. I happen to know, no, that company's losing money like crazy. Their balance sheet is terrible. Their cap structure is screwed up. They're not making any money. And yet the CEO is going around saying to people that it's a profitable company. The irony is the CEO doesn't think he's lying because he's got in his mind some convoluted formula for how he thinks it's all going to work out. But the fact of the matter is, in any particular period of time, the company's losing money. Now, once you have no accountability at the CEO level, it just continues through all the hires. So that means you're going to hire engineers who tell you the product is ready, and the product's not ready. You're going to hire salespeople who tell you they've made a sale of 10 units, and what they mean by that is they filled the distribution channel with 10 units that are sitting in inventory someplace that haven't been sold to anybody. These kinds of things, in terms of a company culture, are killers. And I've learned something the hard way, unfortunately, and that is when you have a culture, you can fire the CEO, you can fire the founders. You can even change out some of the board members, and for some reason, that culture just sits there, it stays there, you can't change it. So be very sensitive. My view is be very sensitive to the culture you want to have in a company because it's something that lasts for a very long time. And it's very hard to change. It's like a big boat you can't turn around. Okay, to conclude, I just want to say, as the Grail Knight said in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, choose, but choose wisely. Don't make stupid mistakes. And since Stevens has a Latin phrase, I thought I would end with one of my favorite Latin phrases. This is how I felt about my first company. Okay, I've tried to warn you about some of the stupid mistakes, but the last thing I want to tell you is don't be too timid. There are many paths to success, as I said before. Audentes fortuna juvat. Fortune favors the bold. And if you start a company, you got to be bold. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, George.
Appreciate. Great lecture. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
Thank you.